Hello there! To those that are new, welcome, I am War, and to those returning, welcome back. Today, we're continuing my Thundercats redesign series, where I have my Instagram followers vote on the order in which I redesigned the Thundercats, which are characters from an 80s sci-fi cartoon. Snarf won this round, so let's get into the design process. Snarf had been relatively popular in the polls, so I wasn't surprised when he won, but more like unprepared. I hadn't had much of an idea for how I wanted Chitara and Lionel to look when I designed them, but by this point I'd had time to think more about what I wanted to do with each character. Despite his poll popularity, I had forgotten about Snarf's. Whoopsies. You could say that I was going in blind again, but before I started drawing, I did do quite a bit of pondering about his character and story, and I think that was very beneficial. If you've seen the original Thundercats, so you might agree that Snarf is a bit annoying.
An old Snarf? Snarf! Tigra! Pedro! Pedro! Snarf! Snarf!
I feel like he does get more tolerable and useful to the team as the show goes on, so he does have that going for him. Then, in the reboot, they decided to make him not talk, which wasn't a bad choice, but I wanted to challenge myself to take the original character and see how I could improve upon it. I'll talk more about his actual character later on, but for now we'll focus on his design. Snarf is the only one in the gang that isn't based off of a real cat, and with him being more alien than the others, you might have expected me to make some sort of really crazy alien cat lizard design, but sorry to disappoint. I made a fat old cat man. I ended up keeping his design relatively close to the original, but I also brought in some elements from the Maine Coon cat breed, namely their ear tufts, face shape, and the fur encompassing their neck. I should also mention that Snarf technically isn't a Thundercat, he's a Snarf. His real name is Osber, but he prefers to be called by the name of his species. Anyway, the Snarfs are kind creatures that live with the Thunderians, and this Snarf was the nursemaid to Lionel. I wanted to lean further into those traits, and I started to develop him as those Snarfs evolved to be good at raising children. I wanted his design to be very comforting to look at, so I used a lot of round shapes and minimal sharp shapes. I made him more round as a whole and even traded out his straight spiky fur for curly fur to make him look more soft, kind of like a Devon Rex. Best breed. I also gave him sensory tools like keeping his ears big so he can hear if the kids need help, big whiskers to feel what's going on, and an extra grabbing tool on his tail for when his hands are full. I struggled a bit with the end of the tail because I wanted it to be efficient for grabbing, but not look creepy. I tried a mechanical grabbing tool, suckers, even an extra hand on the end of the tail, but they all seemed weird, so I split the end of the tail into two thin segments with more puffballs on the end that he can curl up to grab things with. Snarf doesn't wear clothes in the original, but I thought it'd be fun if he had some. Snarf is a nursemaid, but he also cooks for the Thundercats, so I knew I wanted to give him an apron. It has pockets! I also wanted to give him a cute little hat. Snarf kind of reminded me of my grandpa's a bit, and my grandpa on my dad's side likes to wear one of these Scottish caps. So I gave Snarf something similar to that, but the pattern and extra droopiness I gave it sort of makes it look like a beanie. I also gave his hat this sort of net veil thing that he can put his beard in while he's cooking, then flip it over when he doesn't need it. I used translucent fabric for this because I wanted to bring more consistency from Chitara and Lionel's designs, but I ended up using almost none of those poofy, edgy things I kept going on about in the prior two. You also noticed that I made his shoes quite similar to Lionel's, because as Lionel's caretaker, I thought it would be cute if they matched a bit. Another design element I've decided on for my Thundercats is that they all have some sort of jewel in their design. I wanted Snarf to be round, but Chitara had already taken the circle, so I gave Snarf teardrop-shaped jewels among some other teardrop-shaped things in his design. Snarf had been moving along very fast and quite well, so I moved into color. I mentioned that I wanted his design to be comforting and calming, and scientifically blue is the most calming color. I've been using blue as an accent color in this series to contrast the warm colors of the kitty cats, but I have another character that I want to be the blue character, so Snarf isn't going to be blue. I also mentioned wanting Snarf to sort of match Lionel, and because Lionel was red, I thought about giving Snarf a sunset-like color scheme, but in the end I started giving him a brown base and decided I liked it so much that I just used more shades of brown for the rest of his design, again using the blue as an accent. I forget when I'm color coding my characters that I can use neutral colors and not just the rainbow, but I think the brown is really cute on him. Moving on to the final, I had to be careful with his pose so that he didn't feel too youthful or out of character. I did sort of want him to stand on his tail, but I couldn't think of a good way to pose him, so I used a running pose, sort of like how he's always running after Lionel. I also had his arm up with this spoon to mimic Lionel with his sword. I mentioned earlier how I did quite a bit of pondering on Snarf's character and wanting to talk about that. Honestly, Snarf's story is a bit sad if you think about it, like pretty much his purpose in life was to look after and raise Lionel. But when they were escaping the dying Thundera and went into suspension pods, Lionel's broke and he was the only one that aged, turning him from a kid to an adult. So suddenly this boy that Snarf was tasked to look after didn't need him anymore. At least he thought he didn't. To have that role and part of his connection with Lionel taken away so quick must have been quite a shock. Of course, he still tries to look after Lionel as best he can, even though Lionel's always running into dangerous situations. When I said earlier that I wanted to lean into his role as a nursemaid for Lionel, I thought it would be interesting to show the struggle of Snarf in a different light. Like at first, he does try to keep trying to treat Lionel like a kid, but eventually learns to better adapt to the current Lionel's needs. I also mentioned wanting to make him less annoying, so I thought of making him more like the beloved Uncle Iroh, but he's not as cool as that yet. I wanted Snarf to be a mentor to Lionel, like Uncle Iroh to Zuko, but to make it so that Snarf has to learn to get to that point and also become more confident in himself. Maybe he would have to learn to let Lionel spread his wings, but just be there whenever Lionel decides he still needs the help of an adult. You know what I mean? I just think it would be interesting to have that sort of character arc and highlight it more than in the original. Thinking about that and consciously working to make sure Snarf looked comforting made my heart feel so tender when I was designing him. It was a nice feeling. Anyways, to wrap things up, the thing about his design I didn't really talk about was his eyes. They're pretty similar to the original, but I actually felt more inspired by Fluttershy's eyes. I like how they look droopy and sweet. I gave him circular eyebrows because I was putting lots of circles in his design in case that wasn't obvious. But yeah, I guess that's everything. I'm quite pleased with his design. I think it turned out very cute. I hope that I was able to accomplish my goal of making him look comforting. Please let me know what you think of his design. Thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful day. Bye!